Aliens cried for help, and Deathworlders emerged from the shadows. The dark expanse of space was quiet, almost unnaturally so. Stars glittered coldly, distant and indifferent, as if watching the universe's dramas from afar. Somewhere in this endless void, a small alien vessel drifted silently, its hull scarred from what had clearly been a battle, or perhaps a disaster. Inside, the Lurelians moved slowly, their translucent bodies shimmering faintly under the dim lights. Once proud explorers and scientists, they now appeared fragile, almost fragile enough to break like glass. The distress signal began with a soft, almost melodic pulse, barely noticeable amid the cosmic static. But it carried urgency, a desperation that reached far beyond the Lurelian vessel. They had broadcast it endlessly, hoping someone, anyone, would respond. Most species, they knew, would not come. The universe had long learned to avoid the Lurelians' home world. It was dangerous, full of hostile life and lethal terrain. Many civilizations had received their signals before, only to ignore them. But this time, the signal did not go unanswered. On the outskirts of human space, the Federation's starship Resolute received the call. Its bridge hummed with controlled activity, officers moving with quiet efficiency. Humans were known across several sectors for one thing above all: they survived when no one else could. Harsh worlds, lethal atmospheres, strange predators, humans adapted. Other species called it reckless, but humans called it normal. Captain Mara Vance leaned over the console, her dark eyes fixed on the incoming signal. "It's weak," she said. "Probably a dying vessel, but they're asking for help." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Amir Patel, frowned. "Weak signals in dangerous systems. You know the protocol. We can't risk the ship for a long shot." Mara shook her head. "This isn't a long shot. Humans go where others fear. That's why we're chosen for this." The crew exchanged glances. Mara's reputation for taking impossible missions preceded her, but she had always delivered. "Prepare the drop team," she said. "We're going in." The Lurelian world came into view gradually, a dim, haunting globe surrounded by storms of ash-colored clouds. From orbit, it looked almost peaceful, but anyone who knew Deathworlds would recognize the danger immediately. Nothing lived there that was easy to predict. The atmosphere was thin, the gravity higher than standard, and the terrain was jagged, hostile, full of creatures and plants designed to kill anything weaker than a predator. And the humans, they would thrive here. As the drop pod streaked toward the surface, Mara watched silently. "Remember," she said to her team, "they need our help, and we're the only ones stupid or brave enough to give it." The pod slammed into the ground with bone-jarring force, kicking up clouds of black dust and ash. For a moment, the world seemed dead, silent except for the human engines settling and the muffled groan of the pods. "Status," Mara barked as she climbed out, feeling the biting wind cut through her suit. "Atmosphere breathable with suit support," replied Amir. "Terrain rough, temperature unstable. No immediate signs of life except faint thermal readings from somewhere." Mara nodded. "Then let's find them." The Lurelians were hiding. They moved carefully among the ruins of their cities, fragile shadows of what had once been a glittering civilization. Their towers, once delicate and shining with bioluminescent light, were now nothing more than splintered columns, cracked floors, and twisted metal. Fires still burned weakly in some sectors, and the smell of smoke and decay lingered in the air. When the humans appeared, the Lurelians watched silently, their large, glowing eyes wide with a mixture of hope and fear. They had never seen beings like this before. Strong, unafraid, moving with confidence even in the worst conditions. One Lurelian, a young scientist named Elira, whispered to her companion, Can they survive here?" Her companion, older and more experienced, shook its translucent head. "I don't know. None of the other species could, but they seem different." Humans, Mara knew, had an instinct she had never fully understood herself. They assessed danger and found solutions where others saw death. While the Lurelians huddled in their fragile shelters, the humans were already clearing rubble, setting up portable shelters and scanning for survivors. One human engineer, a wiry man named Finn, crouched over a broken energy conduit. "If we can patch this, we can generate power," he muttered, twisting wires and connecting circuits with rough, efficient movements. Sparks flew, and the conduit roared to life. Lights flickered across the ruined city like the heartbeat of a recovering organism. Elira's eyes widened. She had only seen technology fail here. Yet these humans, these monsters, she thought, they could make broken things work again. By nightfall, the humans had established a small base of operations. The Lurelians had been coaxed into it, hesitant but intrigued. They were cautious, but the humans did not push. Instead, they demonstrated, taught, and protected. Fires were contained, water purified, and temporary shelters erected, all in a day. For the Lurelians, it was a miracle. Then came the first sound. It was faint at first, a low, rolling growl, more felt than heard. The humans froze, scanning the shadows of the surrounding mountains. Mara's hand instinctively went to her sidearm, though she knew the weapon was only part of the solution. The real edge was human adaptability, the ability to think, move, and survive all at once. "There's something out there," said Amir, voice steady despite the tension. "We need to find it before it finds us." The Lurelians trembled. They had known danger all their lives, but this was different. Whatever moved in the shadows of their world was ancient, lethal, and unstoppable, at least in their experience. But humans did not seem afraid. They began setting traps, analyzing tracks, and listening. One human, a young scout named Rhea, crouched low to the ground. "This terrain," she muttered, "it's alive. Every sound tells a story." She placed small sensors along the paths and began mapping the movement patterns of whatever was out there. The Lurelians watched in disbelief. They understand it," whispered Elira. "They feel the planet, not just fear it." As the night deepened, strange shapes moved in the distance, silhouettes against the faint glow of the dying planet's moons. The humans observed silently, never turning away, never panicking. They moved with patience, intelligence, and courage. Mara realized something profound. These creatures were terrifying, yes, but the humans were something more. They were survivors. By the time the first Deathworlder, a massive, shadowy predator with jagged limbs and glowing eyes, appeared at the edge of the camp, the humans were ready. They did not fight blindly. They set traps, coordinated movements, and used the terrain to their advantage. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the creature recoiled, confused and frustrated. The Lurelians gasped. No species had ever made a Deathworlder hesitate. Mara stood at the center of the camp, watching the predator retreat into the darkness. "This is only the beginning," she said. "They're not afraid of us, and that's exactly what we need." For the first time in centuries, the Lurelians felt hope, not because they were saved, but because humans had arrived, a species unlike any other, strong, fearless, and unpredictable. And in this universe, sometimes that was enough to turn the tide. The stars above seemed colder than ever, the planet more dangerous. Yet in the midst of danger, a single truth emerged. Humans would not just survive, they would thrive. And for the Lurelians, that made all the difference. The night on the Lurelian planet was darker than any human had ever seen. The sky, thick with ash clouds, blocked most starlight, leaving the world in a shadowy gloom. Fires from the ruined cities flickered weakly, casting long, trembling shadows across the jagged terrain. For most species, this would be a nightmare. But humans moved with calm precision, using the darkness to their advantage. Captain Mara Vance stood on a rocky ridge overlooking the temporary camp. Her eyes scanned the horizon, sharp and focused. Every movement in the shadows mattered. Every sound told a story. Beside her, Lieutenant Amir Patel checked the maps Rhea had made, connecting sensor readings to possible predator movements. They're everywhere, Amir said quietly. Tracks, broken branches, small thermal spikes. The Deathworlders are hunting tonight. Mara nodded. Good. That means they are active. That means we can observe, plan, and control. The Lurelians huddled nearby, whispering among themselves. To them, the humans' calm was almost frightening. They had seen many species flee at the first sign of danger, but these humans. They approached death itself with curiosity, not fear. Elira, the young Lurelian scientist, could not stop staring at Mara. They do not fear the predators, she whispered. Her companion, older and wiser, shook its head. Humans are not like us. Not like any species we know. As night deepened, the Deathworlders became more visible. They were massive, shadowy creatures, taller than a human in their crouched form, with jagged limbs that could slice through rock. Their glowing eyes reflected in the darkness, scanning, hunting. Their movements were silent yet terrifyingly fast, a predator perfected over centuries of evolution. The humans, however, were ready. They had already placed motion sensors along the approach paths and rigged crude but effective traps. Finn and Rhea crouched behind a ridge, communicating in soft whispers. Wait for the first one to cross, Finn said, then trigger the noise decoy. Mara's voice came over their earpieces. Remember, we don't just want to survive, we want to learn, observe, understand. The first Deathworlder appeared, moving through the shadows with lethal grace. It paused, sensing the humans. Its glowing eyes scanned the terrain. Finn triggered the decoy, a loud metallic clang followed by a puff of smoke, and the creature twitched, confused. It hesitated, uncertain, and for the first time the humans had the upper hand. Good, Mara said. Keep it in sight but don't engage directly. Let's see what it does next. The Lurelians gasped from their hiding spot. They had never seen predators hesitate. They had never seen anyone control the environment like this. Hours passed as the humans carefully observed, noting the Deathworlders' hunting patterns. They moved in groups, silent yet coordinated, using the planet's natural terrain to their advantage. They were not just predators, they were tactical hunters. Rhea pointed to a cluster of sensors. They prefer high ground, she whispered. They avoid open areas. They communicate with each other using vibrations we can't hear. They're smarter than we thought. Mara nodded. Exactly. Now we use that. Lead them toward traps and ambush points, but keep it safe. We study, we adapt, we survive. The Lurelians continued to watch in awe. One elder, voice trembling, said, No species, no one could do this. But the humans, they are something else. They are alive in ways we cannot imagine. As the night wore on, the humans ventured further from the camp. Their goal was not just observation. They wanted to map safe zones, potential ambush areas, and predator behavior patterns. Mara, Amir, Finn, and Rhea moved silently across rocky ridges and deep chasms, their senses alert for any sign of movement. Suddenly, a Deathworlder appeared, closer than expected. Its eyes glowed bright and its jagged limbs scraped against the rocks as it approached. The humans froze, using shadows and terrain as cover. The creature sniffed the air, its growl low and menacing. Rhea whispered, Move slowly. Don't panic. Mara signaled with her hand. They advanced in a controlled, coordinated way, keeping the creature at bay. It circled, confused by the humans' unpredictable movements. Then, using a combination of traps and smoke grenades, they guided it away from their path. The Lurelians, observing from above, could not believe what they saw. They are controlling the predators, Elira whispered. They are not afraid, and they are teaching us by example. The humans returned to camp as dawn approached. Exhausted but alive, they began compiling notes, mapping predator patterns, and preparing for the next encounter. Mara addressed the team. Tonight proved something important, she said. We are not just surviving, we are learning. The Deathworlders are dangerous but predictable. We will use knowledge, not fear, to survive. That is the human way. Amir looked thoughtful. Other species would have fled, others would have died, but we adapted, and the Lurelians, they saw it. Mara smiled grimly. Exactly. And that is why we are here. They need us not because we are stronger, but because we think differently. We do not surrender to danger. We master it. As humans rested, the Deathworlders lurked beyond the camp, observing. They were aware of the new presence, aware of the strange, fearless creatures that dared to survive in their world. And though the humans did not yet know it, the Deathworlders were learning too, adapting to the humans' tactics, testing their limits. The Lurelians gathered around Mara as she began explaining how they would survive together. "We will share knowledge," she said. "We will protect you, and we will teach you to survive here. But remember, this planet is alive and it is dangerous. Respect it, understand it, and it will allow you to live. Ignore it and it will kill you." Elira listened carefully, her large eyes filled with wonder. "Humans, you are not just strong. You are incredible. You survive where none can. And you teach us." Mara looked at the fragile aliens and felt a surge of responsibility. Humans were not just visitors here. They were the guardians of hope for a species that had almost vanished. And in the distance, the Deathworlders watched, waiting, testing, and learning. By the second night, humans had established more than just survival. They had created a small network of defenses, traps, and observation posts. They had begun training the Lurelians in basic survival techniques, simple strategies to avoid the predators, and methods to maintain their fragile technology. The Lurelians, once helpless, began to gain confidence, inspired by the humans' fearlessness. Mara knew that this was only the beginning. The Deathworlders would grow more cunning, more aggressive, but humans thrived on challenges. They did not just survive, they adapted, improvised, and overcame. And as the first hints of a new strategy formed in Mara's mind, she realized that the Lurelians were learning something else too. Humans were not merely saviors. They were a force of nature, unpredictable and unstoppable. The sun, faint and reddish, finally rose over the jagged horizon, casting long shadows across the ruined city. The Lurelian planet had grown darker and more dangerous with each passing day. The ash-filled skies churned with storms, and jagged rocks cut paths through the dead forests like knives. The Deathworlders, massive predators of legend, prowled the land with terrifying intelligence, learning and adapting with every encounter. Most species would have fled or surrendered, but humans thrived in danger. Captain Mara Vance stood on a ridge overlooking a valley where a small river of molten rock ran. She squinted against the haze and smoke, noting every ridge, every shadow, every possible predator path. Beside her, Lieutenant Amir Patel adjusted the sensors they had set during the previous nights. "They're getting smarter," Amir said. "They didn't fall for our last traps." Mara nodded. "Of course not, they adapt, but so do we." Behind them, the Lurelians huddled, nervous and unsure. This was unfamiliar territory for them. Their race had been brilliant in science, delicate in survival, but this planet demanded strength and instinct. Mara turned to them. "You've seen us survive," she said gently. "Now it's your turn to learn. Follow our lead and you'll see survival isn't luck. It's preparation, observation, and action. We will show you." Humans had begun mapping the Deathworlders, hunting territories in detail. They identified nesting grounds, preferred hunting paths, and even patterns in behavior that no Lurelian had ever noticed. It was painstaking work, moving through dangerous terrain, often just a few meters away from predators. Finn, the engineer, crouched behind a rock, watching a predator move through the valley. "They're clever," he whispered, "but they leave traces. Every step, every pause, every movement. If we understand it, we can control it." Rhea nodded. "It's like reading a story, but the story can kill you if you make a mistake." Mara smiled at them. "Exactly, and humans are the best readers of danger in this galaxy. We see patterns others miss. That's why we're here, that's why we survive." The Lurelians watched, fascinated. For the first time, they felt a glimpse of what humans truly were. Not just strong, not just brave. Humans were thinkers, observers, problem solvers. And in a world that wanted to kill them, that was everything. The humans' next step was bold. They decided to enter the heart of the Deathworlders' territory, a massive canyon filled with jagged rocks and strange, glowing plants that could shred flesh on contact. The Lurelians protested. "It is too dangerous," said Elira, her voice trembling. "You cannot survive there, none can." Mara looked at her calmly. "We're not most species, and we don't just survive, we adapt, watch and learn. The key is to respect the danger but never let it control you." Finn and Rhea led the way, carefully placing sensors and traps as they moved. Every movement was precise, calculated. Every step avoided hazards. Even when the ground beneath them cracked or a predator's roar echoed through the canyon, they moved forward, fearless and determined. The Lurelians followed, reluctant but trusting. They began to notice patterns in the humans' movements, how they used shadows for cover, how they anticipated attacks, and how they created opportunities from threats. Then, the first major confrontation occurred. A Deathworlder emerged from the shadows, massive and jagged-limbed, its glowing eyes fixed on the humans. It charged, faster than anything the Lurelians had ever seen. Panic would have been natural for anyone else, but the humans reacted instantly. Mara signaled, and Finn triggered a set of traps. Smoke exploded around the predator, confusing it. Rhea and Amir guided it toward a narrow canyon path where its size became a disadvantage. Using the environment against the predator, the humans forced it into a confined space. Then, carefully and without unnecessary risk, they used specialized tranquilizers to subdue it temporarily. The Lurelians watched in awe. They are not afraid of death," whispered Elira. "They control it." Mara turned to the aliens. "Observe. Every predator can be understood. Every danger can be measured. That's what humans do. That's how we survive." After the confrontation, the humans discovered something incredible. Deep in the canyon, hidden under layers of rock and ash, were the Deathworlders' nests, cradles of massive eggs and young predators. It was a revelation. The Lurelians had never understood how these creatures reproduced or how their numbers had grown. Mara studied the nests carefully. "This explains why the predators are so numerous. Their young are protected and the adults coordinate. But this is also our opportunity. If we can manage these nests, we can control the population, reduce danger, and help the Lurelians survive." Amir raised an eyebrow. "You mean use the predators themselves as a tool?" Mara smiled grimly. "Exactly. Knowledge is power, understanding is survival, and humans always find a way to turn danger into advantage." The next few days were a combination of daring exploration and careful strategy. Humans and Lurelians moved together, mapping territory, setting traps, and learning the predators' weaknesses. Mara taught the Lurelians to recognize signs of danger, the broken branches, the shifted stones, the faint heat trails. Slowly, the fragile aliens began to gain confidence. Elira was amazed. "We thought we knew our planet, but humans see it differently. They do not fear it." "They respect it, yes, but they do not run." Mara nodded. "Fear keeps most species alive for a moment. Courage, understanding, and action keep them alive forever." The humans also began to notice patterns in the Deathworlders' behavior. The predators communicated through vibrations and subtle movements, anticipating threats, but humans adapted. They used decoys, mimicry, and timing to manipulate the predators. One by one, the humans turned the lethal creatures into manageable threats, demonstrating control where no one else could. The Lurelians' admiration grew, and with it, their respect for humans' unique abilities. They had never seen any species survive in the harshest conditions without advanced technology or protective suits. But humans were different. They were hardy, clever, and fearless. They did not just endure, they mastered the impossible. One evening, after another successful expedition into Deathworlder territory, Mara addressed the team. "We've learned enough to turn the tables. We can guide the predators, contain the danger, and give the Lurelians a chance to rebuild. But remember, the planet is still alive and it's still dangerous. We do not conquer it, we work with it, we survive with it." Elira listened carefully. "Humans, you are not just saviors. You are a force. You survive where none else can, and you teach us how." Mara smiled. "Exactly, and that's why we're here. To survive, to adapt, and to help you do the same." The humans' next mission was the most daring yet. They planned to enter the largest Deathworlder nest, far in the deepest canyon. It was a gamble. The predators there were enormous, stronger, and smarter. But Mara knew humans had one advantage: unpredictability. No creature, no matter how cunning, could anticipate human creativity and adaptability. Finn, Rhea, and Amir prepared the traps, sensors, and decoys. Mara briefed the Lurelians. "Stay close, follow instructions, and do not panic. Observe, learn, and survive. This is the ultimate test, but I promise you, humans do not fail when we work together." The team descended into the canyon, careful and deliberate. The air grew hotter, thicker with ash. Strange cries echoed from the shadows. Every step was a potential trap, every movement dangerous. Yet the humans moved with calm determination, understanding the terrain, predicting predator behavior, and using it to their advantage. As they reached the heart of the nest, the true scale of the predator's power became clear. Massive Deathworlders guarded the eggs, coordinated and intelligent. But humans did not falter. Using smoke, sound, and terrain manipulation, they corralled the predators, studying them, learning their patterns, and slowly gaining control over the situation. For the Lurelians, it was astonishing. They had witnessed the impossible. Humans were not merely surviving, they were mastering the planet, using knowledge, skill, and courage to turn death into opportunity. By the end of the mission, the humans had achieved a remarkable feat. They had mapped the nest, understood predator behavior, and established methods to control the dangerous creatures without killing them. The Lurelians had witnessed humans' unique combination of courage, intelligence, and adaptability. For them, it was not just survival, it was revelation. Mara stood at the edge of the canyon, looking over the landscape. The ash-filled skies above, the jagged rocks, and the lurking predators were all dangerous, but humans had turned it into a controlled challenge. "The planet is still deadly," she said, "but we are ready, and the Lurelians, they will survive too, not because the universe is kind, but because humans do not give up. We adapt, we endure, we conquer challenges that would kill others." For the first time, the Lurelians felt hope, not as a distant dream but as a tangible reality. Humans had shown them that survival was not about luck, it was about courage, intelligence, and the refusal to surrender. And in the shadows of the Deathworlders, the humans had gained an advantage that no other species had ever achieved. The planet remained dangerous, the predators still deadly, and the nights full of terror. But humans had demonstrated the ultimate truth. Danger was not a limit, it was a challenge to overcome. The sun barely pierced through the ash-filled sky, casting long, reddish shadows across the jagged landscape of the Lurelian planet. The air was thick with the smell of sulfur and smoke, and the jagged rocks reflected faint light like broken mirrors. It was a hostile world, one that had killed countless species and could have ended the humans' mission in an instant. But Captain Mara Vance and her team had learned something essential. Humans did not just survive, they thrived in places others feared. From the ridge above the central valley, Mara looked down at the small human Lurelian camp. Temporary shelters, carefully reinforced traps, and sensor arrays dotted the landscape. The Deathworlders, the massive predators that had ruled the planet for centuries, roamed beyond the camp's defenses, but their movements were no longer entirely unpredictable. Humans had observed, learned, and now exerted subtle control over their hunting patterns. Lieutenant Amir Patel stood beside her. "They're still dangerous," he said quietly, "but I think they respect the humans now." Mara nodded. "Not respect exactly. Caution, fear is temporary. But understanding lasts." Below, Lurelians moved among the humans, assisting in the camp's fortifications and cautiously learning techniques to survive. The fragile aliens had come a long way from the desperate, hopeless beings who had first signaled for help. They now worked with determination, following the humans' lead and even innovating in small ways of their own. Elira, the young Lurelian scientist, approached Mara hesitantly. "Captain, we have learned so much. From you, from your people. We never imagined survival like this was possible." Mara placed a reassuring hand on the alien's glowing shoulder. "You have learned quickly, but this planet is still dangerous. Our work is not done. We survive, yes, but we also ensure that your species can continue." The humans' next task was the most daring yet: to secure the heart of the Deathworlders' territory, a massive canyon system where the predators' largest nests were hidden. Here, the planet's most intelligent and aggressive Deathworlders guarded their young and coordinated hunts. No other species had ventured this far without dying, yet Mara's team prepared to enter with confidence and careful planning. Finn and Rhea checked the traps and sensors along the path. "Everything is ready," Finn said. "We can guide them, contain them, and still stay alive." "It's risky, but we can do it." Mara looked at her team and nodded. "Remember, this is not about dominance. It's about control, understanding, and teaching the Lurelians to survive. Keep your wits, trust your instincts, and move together. Let's go." The humans moved first, the Lurelians following cautiously. The Deathworlders watched from the shadows, enormous silhouettes with glowing eyes and jagged limbs. They sniffed the air, growled low, and tested the humans' defenses, but Mara's team had anticipated every move. When the humans reached the center of the canyon, the full scale of the Deathworlders' nests became visible. Massive eggs clustered in shaded crevices, guarded by adult predators. Some of the creatures were over 10 meters long, with limbs like jagged steel, teeth glinting even in the dim light. The roar of one adult echoed through the canyon, shaking loose small stones. Most species would have fled. But the humans had already begun observing the predators' behaviors, their hunting patterns, and their communication methods. Mara signaled the team to begin the maneuver. Using smoke grenades, decoys, and careful timing, they guided the predators away from key nesting areas. Traps were set to monitor movements, but no lethal force was used unless necessary. Humans understood the delicate balance. The predators were dangerous, yes, but they were also part of the ecosystem. The goal was survival, not extinction. The Lurelians watched in awe. They can control even the strongest predators without killing them," Elira whispered. "We could never have imagined such skill." Hours passed as the humans worked tirelessly. Each predator encounter was a careful dance of observation, prediction, and improvisation. The team moved with precision, anticipating the creature's next move, guiding them through narrow canyons and into temporary containment zones. At one point, a massive Deathworlder lunged unexpectedly, jaws snapping, limbs flailing. Mara reacted instantly, signaling the team while moving into the predator's path to draw its attention. Finn triggered a trap that emitted a blinding flash of light and loud vibrations, confusing the creature. Rhea maneuvered from the side, creating a clear path for the predators to retreat. The entire sequence was a testament to human adaptability, fast, coordinated, and fearless. Amir exhaled slowly. Every other species would be dead by now. Mara's eyes scanned the canyon. "Exactly, but humans, we adapt, we improvise, and we survive." By the end of the day, the humans had achieved something remarkable. They had mapped the nests, observed the adult Deathworlders, and established containment strategies that reduced danger without killing the creatures. More importantly, the Lurelians had learned by example how to read predator behavior, anticipate danger, and survive where none else could. Elira approached Mara, her eyes wide with gratitude and awe. We have hope now, not just for ourselves but for our world. You have shown us that survival is possible, Mara smiled. No, you've shown yourselves. We only guide the way. The humans survive because we don't give up. But you are learning the same lesson. That is more important than anything else. As night fell, the Lurelians gathered in the human camp, listening to Mara and her team explain their strategies, predator behaviors, and survival tactics. They practiced under the humans' guidance, learning how to move silently, observe carefully, and respond quickly. The Deathworlders prowled beyond the camp, cautious but curious. Their massive forms shifted in the shadows, eyes glowing, observing the humans who had tamed their domain, not through strength alone, but through intelligence, adaptability, and courage. Amir watched one of the larger predators as it circled at a safe distance. They respect us, he said quietly. Not fear exactly, but they know we are different, Mara nodded. Different enough to survive, different enough to teach others to survive. And that is the human advantage. The next morning, the humans led a final mission into the deepest canyon, where the largest Deathworlder nest lay. The predators were enormous, coordinated, and aggressive, but Mara's team had become even more skilled. They anticipated every move, adapted to every attack, and used the terrain, traps, and even predator behavior itself to their advantage. By midday, the mission was complete. The nests were secure, predator activity was monitored, and the Lurelians now had the knowledge and skills to navigate the deadly terrain themselves. Humans had transformed the impossible into a manageable challenge. Elira approached Mara once more, tears shimmering in her glowing eyes. You saved us, not just our lives but our future. We can rebuild. We can survive because of you. Mara shook her head. No, humans survive because we don't give up. You survive because you chose to learn. You are stronger than you think, and that is what matters. As the humans prepared to leave the planet, the Lurelians gathered to see them off. Their once fragile, desperate forms now moved with confidence and hope. The bond between species was clear, not one of fear or dependency but of respect and understanding. Elira stepped forward. Captain Mara Vance, humans, you are more than a species. You are a force. You survive where others cannot, and you teach us to survive as well. We are in your debt, Mara smiled warmly. We don't ask for thanks. We do what we do because it's in our nature. But remember this, survival is never guaranteed. It is earned, and now you know how to earn it. The Lurelians nodded, their glowing forms shining faintly in the dim light. For the first time in centuries, hope was not fragile or fleeting. It was alive and tangible. As the human ship lifted off, the Deathworlders watched from the shadows. Massive, intelligent, and lethal, they were still the rulers of this deadly planet, but they had learned something new. Humans were not just visitors. Humans were a force of nature, unpredictable, fearless, and unstoppable, and even the greatest predators had to respect that. The planet remained dangerous, full of hazards and challenges, but humans had left behind a legacy. Not just survival techniques or technology, but knowledge, courage, and a lesson in adaptability that would echo for generations. Mara looked down at the planet, the ash storms swirling below. This world is deadly, she said softly, but it is also alive, and we have shown that even in the darkest places, life can endure. Humans endure, and so can others if they learn the way. In the distance, the jagged silhouettes of Deathworlders moved cautiously through the shadows. They were dangerous, yes, but they had been tamed, understood, and respected. And for the Lurelians, that made all the difference. Hope had returned to a dying world. Not through magic, not through luck, but through humans, fearless, adaptable, unstoppable. And in the silent, ash-choked skies, the universe had witnessed once more why humanity was not just another species. It was a force of survival unlike any other human stood tall amidst the ruins, their bodies scratched and scorched, but unbroken. Mara scanned the horizon again. Somewhere in the shadows, the Deathworlders lurked, powerful and deadly. But for the first time, humans had a plan, and the predators had something to fear. For the Lurelians, the lesson was clear. Hope was not a gift from the stars. Hope was the humans themselves. And in the darkness beyond the horizon, the Deathworlders waited.